Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat basketball channel. My name is Amir. I'm joined today by my friend again, Vonig. Vonig, how are you doing today?
Good, good. Thank you.
Awesome. So before I get into today's video, just want to thank you guys for subbing to the channel. Really appreciate it. Getting close to 200 subs. I was only at like 50 something last week, so I really appreciate the support. So if you can hit the subscribe button, that would mean a lot. So thanks again. For today's video, so I want to bring in Vonig. If you guys watched the last video a couple days ago, Vonig is a Rockets fan, so we talked about Cam Whitmore and how the Miami Heat, in his opinion, missed out along with some other teams that had the opportunity, like the Lakers and Warriors. So um, we chatted about that, which was fun. And so I wanted to bring Vonig in because there's been new reports, not really new. I mean, I've already done 2 videos on Christian Wood, and so have other Miami Heat content creators. So nothing crazy out there. We know the Heat have been interested in him potentially for the last 2 or 3 years, um, but we just weren't able to pay him as much as he wanted at the time. And so there's a new report saying that he was interested in the Lakers, but right now it looks like it's between the Bulls, which I think is the biggest likelihood for him, or the Miami Heat. And so I wanted to ask Vonig, just in general, because he was on the Houston Rockets for 2 years. He's been on 8 teams over 7 years. Is that correct, Vonig?
Or seven teams in 8 years.
7 teams in 8 years, and Houston's the only team he was on for multiple seasons, right? So I'm looking, he was at Philly, Charlotte, Milwaukee, New Orleans, Detroit, Houston for 2 seasons, and then Dallas. So in my opinion, I haven't watched a ton of Christian Wood because I haven't watched a ton of those games unless they play the Heat, which is pretty much 2 times a year for most of the teams because he's mostly been in the Western Conference um, of late. So, what are your thoughts on him just as an overall player and his skill set, and what do you think he could bring to the Miami Heat?
Um, Offensively, a very, very good player. Has for a guy his size, great touch. Can score around the basket. Can obviously space the floor and hit mid range and even your threes. He's a good 3-point shooter. Um, so he's got the length. He's got the scoring ability. But obviously, bouncing around for as many teams as he's been on over the last 8 seasons. That's rough, and to not be able to latch on and stick somewhere, kind of speaks to him as a player overall.
Totally. What do you think? What do you think? Like, what are your thoughts on him being paired next to Bam? So he's a power forward, right? 6'10" power forward. He's technically taller than Bam, but I guess Bam has officially been our center for the last 3 or 4 seasons, I would say. So how do you think he fits next to Bam on the Heat's roster next year if we signed
I,
him?
I think it could work. I think he's not a starter. His ceiling is to come off the bench. And a nice thing with Bam is that Bam gives you the defense. I think that's the knock on Christian Wood. Um, I don't know if it's a character thing. I don't know if it's a defensive effort thing. But like I said, he hasn't been able to latch on because I think he's built this reputation around his career, sadly, because he is an NBA talent. But he just can't stick around on any one team because of these issues that he has. With Bam, like I said, because he's such a defensive presence and defensive player of the year candidate, I think he probably masks a lot of those deficiencies that he has. And offensively, I think you know, I know you guys got rid of Zeller and Yurt Seven. I mean, Orlando Robinson, we just talked about him in the last video as far as maybe getting some minutes and opportunity off the bench. Another offensive big. There might be a little bit of redundancy there. You know what I mean? Like, is it worth it to give maybe some of those minutes to Orlando Robinson, who's younger and probably better at defense already than Christian Wood, or is it better to bring somebody in that's got the experience and you know, has been in the league now for 8-9 years?
Yeah. So what was your guys' record? Was it 2020 when he had his first year with you guys? 21, almost what, 8 rebounds, or no, 10 rebounds almost. I'm looking at like a block a game. Like, how was he that season? Like, were those just like empty stats? Like, did he contribute to winning? Did he have like a good win percentage? Like, what happened essentially? How do you go from like 21 and
Uh,
10 to
When,
like getting
when
traded next season? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of crazy to see. What are your
now
thoughts?
I think Charles Barkley always says a little bit of the a looter and a riot phrase, and with Christian Wood, definitely there are some empty stats in there. I don't think you could really say he's contributing to winning when the Rockets in those seasons post Harden, the first two, we were the worst team in the league back-to-back seasons. So I think we won about 20, 21 games each season, and then just finished second worst last year. So he wasn't contributing to winning. I was drinking the Kool-Aid there for a little while.
I remember.
Yeah, before Harden demanded his trade, I was trying to, I was watching all the hype videos, and I was watching the montages where they had like, a split screen of his offensive plays and the same plays that Anthony Davis was doing. And I was like, man, this guy's got Anthony Davis game. And he's just not being given an opportunity to showcase it because, he was buried on the Hornets bench. He was kind of, he wasn't drafted or anything like that. So I thought maybe he was just a guy that wasn't getting the opportunity. He got the opportunity with the Rockets. I think it was a combination of, again, I think he overstayed his welcome. I think the defensive issues, the communication issues, all reared its head, and I ultimately think that the fact that he was older and looking to get paid again wasn't going to match up with our timeline of a true rebuild. And so once Harden left, like I said, he got the opportunity to basically be the number one man on the team. And even then, the Rockets moved on from him. And I thought him going on to the Mavs was actually a really, really good team for him. And the fact that the Mavs have not had a legitimate big man in how many seasons? They've been looking to give Luka somebody other than Dwight Powell. And Christian Wood, even in one season there, outstayed his welcome and didn't make it work. And he was playing pretty well again offensively off the bench. But for all the other reasons, I mean, you tell me like why the Mavs couldn't make use of him and are already after one season bailed on him. That says again red flags everywhere.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Do you think so? Again, you mentioned that you think he shouldn't be a starter. Is that based on the team? Like, if it's a contending team, like, what's if he gets signed by the, maybe not the Bulls, because the Bulls dealt with injuries with like Lonzo, and I think Caruso had missed some time. Like, some other play, everybody misses time now in this load management era of NBA basketball. So, not sure how many games Levine and DeRozan missed, but I mean, losing Lonzo is big. So, but they're a playoff team if they have a healthy roster. I would assume they're at least the eighth seed, possibly seventh seed. I know they played in the play-in, I believe, and lost. But is it is he like a bench role player on any team? Like, or if he even goes to a worse team, let's say it's not even the teams he's reported to possibly go to, Bulls, Lakers, Heat. I don't want to say Heat's a contending team right now unless we sign or trade for Damian Lillard, because we obviously lost Strus and Vincent, two of our starters from last year. So we have some room to make up for that. But do you think his ceiling really is a bench player, and why?
Yeah, yeah. At this point in his career, he's absolutely a bench player. Uh, Couple reasons. One, like I just talked about, I think he is who he is. There's no way in season 8, 9, 10, you're really changing who you are as a player. This isn't a guy that's just he's still on his rookie deal and he hasn't come across the right coach or the right offensive game plan or been talked to about what his red flags are. He is who he is. At his age, anybody that's a legitimate team is not going to give him the minutes to be a starter because they've got it vested in either another person that's a proven star or they're giving those minutes to somebody that they want to see flourish and become that star. He absolutely is an NBA player and he can fit on any of these teams. I mean, yeah, I heard the same thing as far as the Bulls, the Lakers, the Heat. I think he deserves a spot on any of these teams and they should want him. It's just going to be in limited minutes. You know what I mean? 15 to 18 minutes of Christian Wood in the right setting, especially offensively. He's going to give you some valuable play and valuable minutes.
Yeah. So do you think 1 year vets min is what he's going to get from any team, or like it's going to be a prove it year, right? I'm assuming that's my assumption now because based on our conversation, based on watching other videos and doing some research on him of late, it seems like he's not waiting to see where the Dame chip falls like some other free agents potentially were doing. Um, and so I think again, it's an attitude issue, a character issue, a defensive issue, an immaturity issue, whatever it is. Um, so do you think it's going to be like a 1 year vets min prove it kind of
Yeah,
contract? Yeah,
yeah. I mean, he's coming off of his deal with from the Rockets, which we gave him like 3 years, and I think it was like 41 million.
four for
Uh,
40, 4 for 41 or two or something like 4 for 42, I think.
okay, and so I think best case scenario for him. I mean, obviously it's a telling sign, right? Like free agency started what about 3 weeks ago, and the fact that he hasn't signed tells you the market's pretty dry. I know cap space, for the teams that really had it. The Rockets spent all their money. The Spurs, who had cap space, are probably not investing it in a player like Wood. He's not really Spurs material.
No.
So there's not probably a lot out there to give him. I would say his best case scenario would be a 2 year deal where the second year is probably a team option, and he's probably just going to try to, it's going to be probably a veteran minimum deal type deal, and he's going to again, yeah, he's going to have to prove it. This might be honestly his last go, as far as opportunities go, or like I said, as far as end of the bench depth goes. I don't know how many, having played for 7, 8 teams is going to be pretty crazy. Like I said, he's probably burning a lot of bridges each opportunity he gets.
Yeah, he's not like a Nish Smith who's like just not as talented as a Christian Wood in theory, right? Like he's been bouncing around too, but he seems like he probably has good character and like he's still in the league he's been in the league for a reason. So
That's one of his knocks too, is that, what you mentioned, Ish Smith. Ish Smith knows who he is and knows what he brings, and he's a character guy that isn't expecting any minutes, if even to play, unless it's just like, hey, there's that many injuries, or he's just coming in because it's a complete blowout. Christian Wood absolutely thinks he's an all-star. And so that's the mindset. And that's what I think is probably rubbed a lot of these franchises the wrong way. Christian Wood thinks he should be out there and he should be a number one option and he should be playing, 30 plus minutes a game. So he's going to, at some point, he's going to need to have that light bulb go off and have his own epiphany to say, like, hey, if I'm going to stick around in this league, I'm probably going to have to change my viewpoint.
yep. Last question on this guy before we switch gears. What do you think about just the Miami Heat culture? Just Coach Spo, Pat Riley. What kind of influence can they have? I know you said the Spurs wouldn't sign him either, obviously, and he's not Spurs or Miami material based off the conversation we've just had. But could a Spurs, hypothetically, or Miami, two of the best organizations in basketball, could they change his behavior? Like, do you think they could resurrect his career? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, honestly, if there was going to be franchises that could do it, I do. I mean, the Spurs culture and the Heat culture are absolutely real things. Anybody that watches enough basketball over the last several decades knows it, sees it. They see it in the coaching. They see it from the consistency of their front office. They see it in terms of how they win. As underdogs, they see it as, undrafted players coming onto the team that everybody else passes on and turn them into gold. So yeah, I mean, Christian Wood, for his sake, those would be great places for him to try and flourish, because he's got to basically get on the bus, or it's going to drive on without him.
Yeah, and so that was the last question on Christian Wood, but I wanted to shout out a Miami Heat content creator, Ant Donardo, was made a video comparing Christian Wood to Hassan Whiteside. So they had kind of like a similar career path, even though Whiteside was drafted in the second round. He bounced around, plenty of teams before he got an opportunity with Miami. But also before they even got an opportunity, they both had to go overseas. Um, I forgot where Hassan went. I don't know if it was the Middle East. Um, I know Christian Wood played in China and got cut from a team in China. So this guy thinks he's an all-star level talent, should be a number one option on a team. Is kind of funny if you got cut from a Chinese team, that's probably saying a lot right there in terms of behavior and attitude and mindset and all that stuff outside of the raw talent that he has, right? Um, so I thought that was a good comparison though, because they both bounced out of the league. They got their opportunity. He got his with Houston and got that contract. Hassan Whiteside finally joined the Miami Heat, and he went. I think he's the only NBA player, like almost in NBA history, that went from a vet's minimum salary to a max contract the next year. So he got a 4-year, $98 million deal, which was not horrible at the time, because this was like 2015 or so, 16. Um, so it wasn't like horrendous. Like people were starting to get those crazy types of contracts, right? Not like today, but um, he just had a total bad attitude. Was a great defender, obviously, right? Like he led the lead in blocks and rebounds like a couple times in that stint. But then I think he saw once Bam Adebayo got drafted and was ascending, and he was losing minutes. Like he obviously just had behavioral issues, right? Like effort issues. Like he once he got the bag, it seems like he took his foot off the gas and stopped trying. So I don't know. Do you see any comparisons there, like Whiteside and Wood? Do you think it's kind of like a similar scenario? Because Whiteside's only 33 and he's out of the league. He's been out of the league. I don't think he played last year. I think the last time he played was like 2 seasons ago with the Jazz.
Yep.
So
Yeah, no, I think it's a good comparison. I think, I think Whiteside was a way more talented player, two ways. And then even when he got that contract from the Miami Heat, I mean, he had a couple of amazing seasons. That's why he got that contract. Um,
totally.
Christian Wood got his contract because he actually ended the season with the Pistons before the Rockets signed him really, really strong, and he was kind of dominating on the back half of that Pistons season. But like I said, he can get you numbers, especially on offense. But does his style of play and does his attitude and all that stuff really contribute to winning? It didn't work for the Rockets. So
Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah. So switching gears real quick. So obviously we're all waiting for Damian Lillard to potentially get traded to the Miami Heat. I think it's when he gets traded, not if he gets traded to the Heat. I think it's going to happen eventually. Cronin's just being a biznatch and just taking forever. So we're just annoyed and getting impatient. But as long as we get him before training camp, which is like end of September, I think that's fine. Anything beyond that could be detrimental. And if Cronin's the biggest idiot GM in basketball and wants to try to pull a Kevin Durant, or not a Kevin Durant, was it the Nets? Whoever I don't know who's the GM for the Nets. Do you know? Was it
Sean Marks.
Marks? Was it Sean Marks? Yeah, if they want to like keep him for the season, even though he demanded a trade last year, right, and wanted to go to the Suns or the Heat, and they traded him before the deadline eventually. I don't think that's going to work with this team because they weren't in a rebuild mode, right? So it's detrimental to have him there, like, and just as a distraction, just like pull the band-aid, get some assets. You're going to get players, you're going to get draft picks. Let them integrate and play, and let Scoot and Simons and Sharp be the future with potentially a Nikola Jovic or a Jaime Jaquez, right? Let them get into the system, learn how to play with each other, get those assets in there now. So I'm assuming it's going to happen before training camp. That's like the biggest like red flag milestone, right? If we don't get them by September, then like that I would worry a little bit, and maybe they could use that as leverage, perhaps, to get like an extra player um, outside of a Jovic, the picks, and like a Duncan Robinson as filler. They might have to throw in a Caleb Martin by then. Who knows? I hope not. But anyway, before we have Dame Lillard on this roster, assuming he comes, we still only have 13 players on the roster. So we still have 2 spots left, right? So we have not made any moves in the past 2 weeks because we're waiting for Dame Lillard because we don't know what assets we're going to lose. Again, are we trading Caleb? Are we trading Hope? We're not going to trade. I don't think we're going to trade Jovic and Jaime, but which one are we going to trade? So do we need big? Do we need backup point guards? Like, what are we going to do? So right now, for this exercise, let's do both. So let's do it as is. Let's pretend Damian Lillard's not coming to the Heat. We have 2 roster spots left. We need a point guard because Kyle Lowry is now going to be 37 years old. He lost his role to Gabe Vincent, which was I'm happy about that. So I'm assuming if he's on the team still, he'll be the backup point guard. So we need a starting point guard, or we need a backup point guard. If we don't trust whoever's out there that's available, then we'll force Lowry to start. Probably play like 20 minutes, 22 minutes per game. So Could be a starter, could be a backup, right? All we have is Lowry. Who would be a compliment? And then also, would we need maybe another wing, like a small forward or power forward? Center, we should be good. We have Orlando Robinson. We have Thomas Bryant. If we don't trade for Dame, then we have Nikola Jovic as a power forward. And then we also have Bam as a center and Kevin Love as like a power forward, I guess, right? So I would say maybe a power forward or small forward, but definitely a guard. So I'm going to look at a list of some of these players. I'm going to throw out some names of who I potentially would be interested in, and then let me know your thoughts. So out of these players, I'm going to say Kelly Oubre Jr. I already made a video saying that I think he could be a good fit if he's willing to take no money, basically, and come off the bench. So Kelly Oubre would be like that small forward, power forward. Who else is there? There's a lot of Miami Heat players, former Miami Heat players that have not done as well on these other teams that are available. I see like a Justice Winslow, who's a power forward. I see Derek Jones Jr., power forward, both undersized. PJ Washington, he's not going to come to the Heat. He's going to make
he's
money.
restricted. Yeah, he's going to get paid.
Yep. So let's say just for fun, Justice Winslow, Derek Jones Jr., Kelly Oubre, a Jermichael Green. He's 33. He played for the Warriors last year. He can hit a three. He could spread the floor, kind of. Not a bad rebounder. Anybody else on this list? Tristan Thompson. He's only 32 years old. How washed is that dude? It's so funny. So funny how some people can be so washed between like ages 30 and 33. And players like Jimmy and Dame, who are 33, 34, are just like at their peak right now still. Yeah, I don't see anybody else on this list as I'm getting lower and lower. So out of those wing players, who do you think would be a good fit for Miami? Who would you pick?
I mean, not that I'm personally a fan of this person, but the fact out of the names that you listed, if I'm taking Oubre. I mean, he's pretty inefficient. He had a good season last year on the Hornets, but his game's pretty all over the place. Again, he's probably a guy that culture-wise, I mean, with the being in the Miami Heat system though, he could probably thrive. The other guys on that list I don't like because I just feel like they're either just too old and they're going to be more of a mentor type figure, or I think they're too injury prone, like Winslow and all that kind of stuff. I think the game passed those guys up. I don't think you're going to get super valuable minutes out of them. Oubre can still play, and he's very streaky. And when he gets going, again, he could win you a game, but more often than not, he will lose you a game.
Definitely. But also, yeah, those guys are all 27 basically. Jones is 26, but damn, Winslow's they're still young, 27, 26. I just don't think they offensively would fit what the Heat are looking for. I think Oubre is an okay defender and a better offensive player than those other two. He could learn how to play better D on the Heat. But there's also another player I just noticed. Let's bucket in TJ Warren. He's a small forward. Would you pick TJ or Oubre? How about that?
I actually was. I swear to you, I was just gonna say TJ Warren's still out there. I like TJ Warren. Obviously, huge injury liability, and he just had come back from another big injury prior to joining the. He was on the Suns last year.
Yep.
That last back half of the season, but I like his game. I think he totally fit in with the Heat, and again, limited minutes. He's a dude that at this point he's a veteran. He's a scorer. You're not going to put him in a starting position. I think he'd thrive. I think he'd do well, and honestly, because of that, I would take him over Oubre because Oubre is just he's a little bit more of a wild card.
Yeah, he had that beef with Jimmy in the bubble, which was kind of funny if you remember back. I forgot what it was over, but then they started talking crap to each other on Twitter. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So that would be interesting. I'm sure Jimmy would be okay with him joining the team. Let's see. I just know Damian Lillard's gonna join the Heat. Like, don't talk about it for long, but what do you think? You think it's an if or a when? Just answer it that way.
At this point, everything that we've ever seen over the league over the last several years is basically the stars go where they want, and I can't see how this situation plays out any differently. Harden wants to go to the Nets, he goes to the Nets. Durant wants to go to the Suns, he goes to the Suns. Bradley Beal, obviously he had a no trade clause, so he's going period wherever he wants to go. But Kyrie wants to go to the Mavs, he goes to the Mavs. Like the players dictate where they want to go, and so Dame hasn't shown any other glimpse of any other team that he's wanted to go to besides the Heat. So I think it's inevitable,
Yep.
because that's just how it is. So they can, the Blazers GM, of course, dude, you're never going to get equal value for somebody of that level, superstar, but you want to hold out hope. And at some point, the reality is going to set in and they're going to have to move on from it because it's going to be a distraction from their growth. And it's not like the Blazers don't have young talent to try and go out there and compete. You can't waste time worrying about Dame when you've got Shaden Sharp, Anthony Simons, and you just drafted Scoot Henderson. Those are three awesome young players. And if I'm a Blazers fan, like, dude, I don't want to deal with the drama of Dame. I want to move on and I want to see these young guys play. And I want to be excited about it, and they should be. Absolutely, from the Miami Heat, if you're not gonna get a Dame player back, but get as many first round picks as you can, and shake hands and be happy. That's what the Rockets did with James Harden, and I'm happy.
Yeah, totally. And there's other teams that want Hero, right? So they'll unlock a first pick.
Yep.
They just got to be okay with a Jovic and 4 first picks and a Duncan Robinson.
Yep.
If you want Duncan Robinson, then take Kyle Lowry, who's an expiring contract, and that's good. Getting that off your books after one season, or trading him also during the season, right before the deadline in February. Trade Kyle Lowry then and get 2 young pieces, right? Like that are like on maybe rookie scale contracts if you want to get even younger. So I think that's like a good haul right there. I mean, 4 first round picks is huge. And especially thinking about if they get Miami's 2028, or if it's 3 from Miami, they can unlock one from the Thunder. Like 2 of the picks will be 2028, 30. 2030. What a weird, like, that's crazy, right? Lifetime's going by fast. That's crazy to think. It's not too far away. But 2030, like, how old is Jimmy and Dame going to be in 2030? What year is it right now? 2023. It's 7 years. Dame's going to be 40 and Jimmy's going to be 42. They're out of the league. Like, the Heat might be in a complete, I don't want to use the word rebuild because we don't really typically rebuild, right? But the Heat probably are not going to be contenders at that point. Who knows where they're going to be at that point? So those picks could be good, right? It's not like they're 25 years old each and they're still going to be in their prime, right? And they could sign another contract with the Heat and they're going to be like second, like late picks. So, anywho, let's assume now, sorry, because again, it's more of a when it happens, not if. So screw the exercise of just the Heat filling out the 2 spots that we know they need to fill out based on the current roster. Let's think of it as if Dame is coming, and let's think of it as if we're going to lose again. Jovic, the picks, Hero, of course, and again, it's up to the Blazers, not the Heat, because they'll give up either Lowry or Duncan as the filler. I would be okay with keeping Lowry. Like, if for some reason we keep Lowry, like, that's fine. He's our backup. He has championship experience. Like, we have Dame as our starter. Like, we have an old set of point guards, but that's doesn't matter, right? Lowry could still play, and he showed he has some gas. Like, let's say we keep him. Let's say we keep Lowry. What, like, power forward do you think the Heat would then have to sign to fill the roster? Because if we're going to lose Jovic, Kevin Love is old. He's not going to play more than 20 something minutes per game anyway, right? I assume he's going to be the starter. So, what are some? Do you know any free agents like bigs that you think? Do you think the Heat should sign? Do you want me to name some, or do you have any on the top of your head?
Yeah. Are you looking specifically power forward or center?
Either or.
I
Probably,
mean,
yeah, probably power forward because I mean we have Thomas Bryant and Orlando Robinson, right? And Bam's a center too. Technically, that's 3. So we would need like a power forward. I'm assuming, right?
yeah, that's where you're going to want that Christian Wood type of player. I think that's where he fits. Honestly, he's still the best name on the market. I know like the other bigs that I kind of personally like were Bismack. He was on the Suns last year. Limited minutes again. I just think an energy guy kind of disrupts defense, comes in, gets blocks, rebounds. Again, doesn't need to really touch the ball, but you can use him for serviceable minutes off the bench. Besides that, I think free agency pool is pretty tight. The question is, if, like I said, I mean, you brought up PJ Washington. I love that guy, but I think ultimately the Hornets are just waiting to see what contract offer goes out there, and they're going to match it. But he's a good player, young still. But you're going to have to see like what do the Heat give up, and then how are you guys going to round out the rest of your roster once that entire trade plays out. Yeah, the Lowry. I mean, basically anybody outside of Bam and Jimmy Butler are obviously available. But you could totally still with free agency. I mean, even if you lost like a Lowry, you could still plug it with other veterans. I mean, I know John Wall is still out there and available. He could give. I mean, I guarantee you, he'd be so excited about an opportunity to come off the bench and be a backup on that Miami Heat roster. And he can give you, 15 to 18 minutes of quality point guard play. I think he's still got some game in him. I know the Clippers kind of quit on him early and kind of went the Russ route, but I think he'd be a decent veteran on the Heat team. With, like I said, you could basically put whoever you want around that core of Lillard, Butler, and Bam, and they'd be successful.
I don't know about John Wall. He's like Russ Jr., but like with
No,
injuries. Like I'd rather have Russ than obviously John Wall, but I
John
don't know.
John Wall is obviously he's had the injuries, but he can shoot the ball still. He's got some mid-range game. He can you're not going to want to leave him open on three. Russ is still like his shot is his shot. John Wall's got a better stroke than he does.
All right, give me another player outside of John Wall. Because let's assume Portland is smart and they're like, okay, because I want to keep Duncan Robinson. I'd rather get rid of Lowry. Like I wouldn't mind if either one got traded. Because if we have Lowry, fine. That's a good backup, right? Point guard, even though he's old. But if we keep Duncan, how insane would that be if you have Damian, Lillard, and Duncan, like for Bam and Jimmy, that like to play at the nail and below, right? They like to play down low, mid range to the dunker spot. And imagine the gravity of having Lillard, who could pull up literally from half court, or Duncan Robinson, who could also hit freaking 28-foot 3-pointers like nothing. So I kind of personally rather would have Duncan on the team with Dame. I think that'd be insane, even though he's a defensive liability. I think he'll be fine. Dame's not the best at defense either, but their offense together could make up for that. So I don't really like John Wall. I don't know. He's just injury history, not the greatest efficient scorer, in my opinion. Like, who else would you think could fit in as a backup point guard, assuming now, let's say we trade Lowry as part of the Dame deal? So just
Before I answer that too, I just want to say, man, I feel like Duncan got a lot of his confidence back in the playoffs this last year. Obviously, him riding the bench and then for the season, and then being talked about as the basically the worst contract in the league was a pretty big narrative. But he had a really good playoff, man, and on top of it too, like he wasn't just shooting threes; he was driving. He had a little bit of a step. You could tell, man, he'd worked on his game a little bit. And I think Strus being gone too, I think could be beneficial to him. And yeah, alongside Dame, I mean, he could be a knockdown. Be back to his old self and be drilling threes like he was before he got that monster deal for you guys. In regard to the question, as far as point guards, I mean, another restricted point guard that is still available that I like that we didn't talk about yet is Ao Damansu, who was the for the Bulls. Again, you don't know. Like, we don't know what he's going to be. Obviously, the Bulls already gave up on him. But I'm just talking about youth that's out there that's a little bit unproven. I mean, you get a guy like that. I don't think there's a lot of teams that are in need of a point guard or are going to overpay for him. And I don't think the Bulls are necessarily – they gave Kobe White a deal. I don't think they're going to go chase him and pay top dollar. If you put a guy like that behind Dame to kind of be his mentor and tutor, I think he could thrive. Another young point guard that I still like that I think kind of hasn't really gotten a true fair opportunity is Mac McClung. He obviously won the dunk contest and then got a ton of hype because of that. But dude, the guy can play basketball, man. I don't know if you watched his games. You can't tell me that he's like some just unathletic white dude. You know what I mean? Like, that's not it. Like, the guy can score. The guy has heart. The guy has athleticism. And he has some point guard savvy. So he's another guy that I get it. He's not going to come in and get your starter minutes or anything like that. But like, I just can't believe that the guy hasn't gotten a shot even in a backup role with some team. So
the names you just said, Jesus Christ. Morgan Bin, Matt McClung, Io, I don't even know how to say his last name, and John Wall. Shish kebab.
Hey, for you, I'll give you one more. You want to go throwback, but this is like I'm saying, it's keeping the Miami Heat too old. But you got Dragic is still floating out there, and we know that if as a Miami Heat homer, who doesn't love Dragic? I mean, he is old, but I mean, can he come back and give you 12, 13 minutes of solid point guard play? Do you want to go from a Kyle Lowry to another old dude? I mean,
Do you want a 37-year-old that's actually, I don't know, is like Lowry still probably has slightly more in the tank, that fat meatball. He's 37. I mean, it'd be nice to have him as our third option. Like if our backup gets hurt, I don't think he can give them enough to be the backup point guard. The backup point guard needs more than 10, 12 minutes per game. Backup point guard needs to be playing like 20 minutes, 25 minutes per game, right? I assume like Gabe Vincent played before he got the starting gig, was playing.
so that's realistically, I mean, I gave you names of players that are available that were in the league that I like. But what's really probably going to happen is that the Miami Heat are going to find the next Gabe Vincent, and we don't even know who that is yet. But they probably have him on a G League affiliate. They've already identified him, and I guarantee they will bring in somebody that's going to be just as serviceable and be a Miami Heat immediate, one of those undrafted stars.
We don't have that actually. We have more true point guards, I would say, because Gabe Vincent wasn't a true point guard either, really.
But he played, dude. He ate a lot of those minutes up, and he played well, man. He played well.
Yeah, we have Jamari. I think I might be butchering his name. I know his last name is Bouye. He's a point guard that we're probably going to sign to a two-way deal. I think. I don't think he's going to make the 15-man roster, but he's like pretty quick, which is great. So he has athleticism. He can get downhill, but he's a playmaker. Like he had like 10 assists in a summer league game. Like that's insane. Like everybody's looking for themselves, playing hero ball. Like this guy was just passing to his teammates, finding players, getting them open, getting them in their spots. Like Gabe Vincent wasn't like that type of true point guard. So that he could be next up, but he could be that. He's not. I don't think he's as good of a scorer as Gabe was, but it took Gabe a while to develop that. Like his first couple years were rough. Like he's had his ups and downs, even though he's a scrub overall. I mean, I love him, but he's a role player scrub. Gabe Vincent, like he'll give you 3 games of 20 points in a row, and then he'll score single digits, like get you 5, and just inconsistency makes you a role player, right? You're not consistent for a reason. So miss him, loved him, but yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we'll get someone from our was it the CO Falls? I guess that's how you say it.
That's the Miami Heat way, man. That's what you guys always do, and it always works.
Yes, sir. All right, buddy. Well, I know we went way over the 20 minutes that we projected, so almost doubled that. So thanks for your time, man. Really appreciate the insights. You gonna say bye?
Bye.
There you go. All right. See you guys.
Later.